RJ, there was an interview with physicist Michio Kaku where he described fish living in a pond as beings living in a 2D plane, unable to see or interact with the beings outside the pond, in this case, us. He then speculated that we might be just like those fish, except living in a 3D pond, unable to perceive what may be in the fourth dimension. My question would be,
If you're enjoying the video and you want to go deeper with me, check out my meditation masterclass. It's unlike anything. It's pinned in the comments below.
is his analogy correct? And if so, what is in the fourth dimension? Valerian. Thank you, RJ. Okay, Valerian, this is a very interesting question. Okay, so yeah, there's some truth in this, or it's a useful analogy, I guess we could say. So let's forget dimensions. Number one, let's be accurate. Let's call these things frequencies. Okay, energy exists frequentially. Energy does not exist dimensionally. Dimensions house frequencies. We are not in the third dimension. We are in the third frequency of the first full dimension, which has 12 full frequencies. Now, the third frequency has height, weight, and width, which gives us a three-dimensional effect. Okay, but these are essentially units of measure, right? Okay, so we're in the third frequency. Now, the question is that which is in the third frequency, which is us, can we perceive what's in the fourth frequency? Not to mention what's in the fourth frequency. Can we perceive that? And what is in the fourth frequency? Okay. We absolutely can perceive what is in the fourth frequency, but we cannot use our physical sensory perceptions. The body-mind suit and the five physical senses are part of and attuned to the local environment. The local environment is the third frequency. So therefore, we cannot perceive what exists below or above. Now, the first three frequencies band together to form one thing. So the first three frequencies are kind of unique in the terms of the way that they operate. But that being said, the five physical senses are attuned to the local environment, which is the third frequency, so anything outside of the third frequency will be outside of physical sensory perception, and therefore escapes the intellect or even the meanderings of the intellect, right? And the intellect is always meandering, by the way. Okay, so how do we perceive the fourth frequency? Does it exist? And what is there? Okay, well, it absolutely exists. Now, the way to perceive or experience the fourth frequency, you cannot really use your body mind. Now, what you can use is your sentience or your self. Now, we can immediately associate these things with higher intuitive functionality. Okay, now what we are is an indirect fractal of God, and I say indirect because we're a projection of our higher self, right? But the I am or the sentience is the fractal of God. Now, that is attuned to everything all the way up to where our higher self actually resides within the multiverse. Okay, so for us to perceive what is in these higher frequencies, starting with the fourth frequency, or what would be the lower astral, the astral is the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. So to perceive what is in the fourth frequency, we would simply have to attune the electromagnetic frequency of our brain to our sentience, and we could think of this as clairsentience, clairvoyance, claircognizance, opening up the third eye and seeing what exists in these higher frequential states. The body is not going to be able to do that. And this is why the intellect can only conceptualize what could be there, because it cannot experience it tangibly. You, the real you, your sentience, can absolutely experience the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and so on and so on and so on tangibly, because the real you is part of and attuned to the greater reality itself. But it is an interesting and somewhat accurate analogy that if we reduce ourselves to what I call body consciousness, which is just the five physical senses, and as we said, the five physical senses are just attuned to the local environment, which is the third frequency, we cannot experience nor perceive nor certainly understand what is in the fourth frequency. But you, the real you, can. And you could think of it by doing meditation, if you want to call it that, right? Now, once we get good at doing these things, we can kind of instantaneously be able to experience what's in these higher frequencies. So, yes. Now, what's in the fourth frequency is too much to name, right? That's like saying, well, what's in the third frequency? What we call the third dimension. I mean, how long would it take to sort of explain all the things that are in the third frequency? It would take just as long, if not longer, to explain all the things that are in the fourth frequency. I will say this. There's a whole nother version of Earth that exists within the fourth frequency, and the fifth, and the sixth, and the seventh, and the eighth, and the ninth, and the 10th, and the 11th, and the 12th. Earth is a pan-frequential being, which means it vibrates concurrently in all those different frequencies. And there are versions of Earth taking place right now, right here, right now, in the same space. So maybe I'll leave it with that at this moment. But we can absolutely perceive these things. Absolutely. All of us can. But you have to begin to detach from your identification with your body and your five physical senses in order to be able to do this. So I hope that makes sense. And one more thing I'll add. When when our local environment is a higher frequency, let's just pick the seventh, which would be the upper astral, okay? And the upper astral is where the seventh frequency is where things really start to change from a human perspective, in that everything is working in one direction. Once you're operating at that level, from a human perspective, there's no more negativity. It's impossible because the environment is too holistic and the state of consciousness is too connective to have any negative impulses towards anything or anyone, because it's immediately apparent that everything there is you, that everything is an extension of you, that the one is in the all and the all is in the one, and therefore doing anything negative to anyone else is literally harming yourself. This becomes tangibly apparent within the seventh frequency. Down here, we're too clueless to realize that when we harm someone else, we're harming an aspect of ourselves. So hence, we just keep doing it. Hopefully this video will help change that. Now, when we exist within these higher states, so let's say we incarnated into the seventh frequency of Earth. Think of a glass floor, in that you can perceive and experience everything beneath you. Everything beneath you, you're able to perceive and experience. So the beings that their local environment is the seventh frequency can experience the sixth, the fifth, the fourth, and the third, ours. They can either make themselves known or not make themselves known. That is up to them. But just think of the idea, and I could talk more about this some other time, just think of the idea of having a glass floor that you're able to perceive and experience what is beneath you. But you cannot experience using the suit that is attuned to the local environment to perceive what is above your frequency. Which is why sometimes we get stuck in thinking there can't be anything past this, but that's because we're reducing our consciousness to body consciousness, which is just attuned to the local environment. But the higher mind is not restricted by anything. And so that's where the evolution lies, the higher mind, the utilization of the higher mind. Okay, I hope that answers your question. It's an interesting question. It's a fairly good or useful analogy about the fish and the fishbowl. There's so much more to that, but hopefully this sort of leads us in the right direction.
I hope you enjoyed the video. Now, if you are desirous of more of the real you, and less of your conditioned, agitated mind, if you know that you can create a life that you're not leading right now, but you know you can, check out my meditation masterclass. It's pinned in the comments below.